Welcome back to the channel. Today's report dives into some major moves coming out of Dallas that are already shaking up the roster, just days after the end of the 2025 NFL Draft. The Cowboys made the call to release 4 players from their roster, a move that, while anticipated to some extent, still brought a few surprises and opened up conversations about what this team is really planning heading into the new season. The reason for the cuts: Dallas had to trim down the numbers to stay under the 91-man roster limit, a standard rule this time of year. With 9 undrafted free agents reportedly being brought in, although their signings haven't been officially confirmed yet, something had to give. And of all the names released, one stood out: Malik Davis. Now, if you've been following the Cowboys closely, you probably recognize that name. Davis was a running back with some game experience under his belt, having appeared in 12 games during the 2022 season. He wasn't a superstar by any stretch, but he did post a respectable average of 4.2 yards per carry, which is nothing to scoff at, especially for a guy trying to claw his way up from the bottom of the depth chart. He had spent time on and off the practice squad and was essentially the 6th option at running back. That's a tough spot for anyone, particularly in a system that's now getting even more crowded. What made this move feel more unexpected was that Davis was one of those players who had been around long enough to feel like part of the furniture. He wasn't flashy, but he knew the playbook, understood the system, and had proven in small doses that he could contribute when called upon. The issue is, the backfield in Dallas just got a lot more competitive. Over the weekend, the Cowboys added 2 more running backs in the draft, including Deuce Vaughn, who already has quite a bit of buzz around him. And they've still got names like Jaden Blue and Phil Maffa, a 7th-round pick who could get a lot of looks in the preseason. Throw in guys like Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, and it becomes crystal clear that Dallas is stacked at the position. And let's not forget Denzel Daxton, who's been added to the roster through the International Player Pathway program. While he may not be fighting for a top spot in the depth chart just yet, he still takes up a space on that 91-man list. That means every decision counts. Every roster spot has weight, and unfortunately, that pushed Davis out of the picture. Another factor here is the presence of Lopke, the team's fullback, who can fill in as a running back when needed. That versatility gives Dallas more freedom to make tough cuts like this. Honestly, I didn't think Davis would be one of the names cut this early. In a recent breakdown, we went over about 10 guys we thought could be on the chopping block, and we actually got 3 of the 4 correct. Davis was the one we didn't expect. Not because he was guaranteed a spot, but because it felt like he had just enough value to at least make it through this round of cuts. But here we are, and it's another reminder of how brutal the business side of football can be. I'm curious to know what you all think. Were you surprised by Davis being released? Drop a yes or no in the comments, and let's see where everyone stands. Now, Malik Davis wasn't the only one shown the door. Another name on the release list was offensive tackle Earl Bostic Jr. He came in last year as one of the more notable undrafted free agents from the 2023 class. At the time, Dallas gave him a solid signing bonus and guaranteed money, more than most UDFAs get, which suggested the team saw real potential in him. But fast forward a year, and Bostic finds himself on the outside looking in. That just goes to show how fast things change in the NFL. The Cowboys currently have a surplus of offensive linemen. We're talking about 15 players competing for spots on the O-line, and that number jumped to 17 after the draft, with the additions of Tyler Booker and Dejon Cornelius. It's clear the team prioritized size and athleticism up front this year, and Bostic simply didn't stand out enough to hold on to a spot. Even with his solid frame, 6'3", 310 pounds, the coaching staff seemed to feel that others offered more versatility or higher upside. Players like Matt Ouellette and Nathan Thomas are already seen as reliable tackle options, while Hakeem Adeniji offers some guard flexibility that Bostic couldn't quite replicate. That's the reality for a guy like Bostic. The best case scenario at this point would be a return to the practice squad if injuries strike or depth becomes an issue later down the line. But right now, the door in Dallas seems to be closing. And truthfully, it's not about him lacking talent. It's just a numbers game. He's still young, still has the size and some traits that teams look for. So it wouldn't be shocking at all to see him picked up elsewhere in the coming weeks. Alongside Bostic, the Cowboys also parted ways with Jack Anderson, another offensive lineman who had been bouncing around the league. He was brought into Dallas at the end of January on a futures contract, the kind that usually gives players a chance to compete for depth roles in the offseason. But with the roster swelling in that unit, there just wasn't enough room for everyone to stick. Anderson's journey is familiar to many players on the bubble. Originally drafted by another team, spent time with various franchises, never fully locked down a role, and now looking for another opportunity. The release of these linemen highlights the emphasis the Cowboys placed on adding new talent through the draft, rather than relying on last year's practice squad holdovers or undrafted signings. It's a shift in strategy, bringing in fresh legs, raw potential, and letting the new staff mold them. With a new offensive line coach in the building, plus changes to the defensive staff and overall approach, this offseason feels like a reset for the entire depth chart. Veterans and fringe players who might have been safe last year are suddenly looking expendable. It's not just about who's good, but who fits the new vision. Even with a heavy offensive line group, preseason snaps will be limited. The starters won't see much action in August, so these depth guys really only get a short window to make their case. And if the coaching staff feels they've already seen enough from someone like Anderson or Bostic, then they'll use those reps on the rookies or other younger players they want to evaluate further. It's a brutal reality, but it's how teams find gems and avoid hanging on to players who've already hit their ceiling. There's still more to cover, more names, more decisions coming down from the front office. But the writing's on the wall. The Cowboys are in full roster reset mode. And for guys like Malik Davis, Earl Bostic Jr., and Jack Anderson, this chapter in Dallas may be closing, but that doesn't mean their NFL stories are over. Sometimes a release is just the beginning of the next opportunity. Continuing with the roster shakeup in Dallas, we also had the release of Brock Minson, another name that might not have been on everyone's radar, but adds to the growing list of players now looking for new opportunities. Minson was part of a group that came into the team during a time of transition and heavy competition, especially along the offensive line. When you have 17 offensive linemen trying to prove their value in a single camp, someone's going to get squeezed out, and unfortunately for Minson, that time came quickly. It's a reminder that at this point in the offseason, even promising players with potential upside are not safe if the coaching staff doesn't see an immediate fit or potential role for them on the game day roster. Minson might have been viewed as depth, someone who could grow into a role, but the sheer volume of players in front of him simply left no room to breathe. The Cowboys are clearly not just trimming fat, they're reshaping their depth chart. This isn't about getting to 91 players just to stay compliant. It's about giving meaningful reps in training camp and preseason to guys who actually have a chance of cracking the regular season lineup. There's a sense of urgency in Dallas right now, a push to evolve past last year's disappointing finish, and you can see that reflected in every decision they make. That brings us to another player who was quietly let go. And while his name may not dominate headlines, his story is one that resonates with anyone who's ever tried to grind their way into a permanent spot in this league. This player, a linebacker who entered the league as an undrafted free agent, has been on the outskirts of rosters for a while. He signed with the Cowboys earlier in the year, right after the season wrapped up, in what's known as a reserve short futures deal, basically a way for teams to hold on to guys through the offseason without committing a full roster spot during the regular season. His path has been winding, marked by brief stints with multiple teams, bouncing between active rosters and practice squads, never quite finding stable footing. And just like that, he's now back on the market, waiting to see if another team sees something in him that Dallas didn't. The linebacker group in Dallas is getting crowded too. The team has quietly stockpiled talent at that position, bringing in fresh faces each year in hopes of landing a contributor, particularly on special teams. One of those linebackers was re-signed shortly after the season ended, a veteran presence with just enough experience to help guide the younger guys. Others are more developmental, athletes who bring energy and physicality but still need refinement. The coaching staff seems ready to throw those players into the fire during the preseason and see who rises. So when it came down to it, the linebacker who was cut this week just didn't have a clear role. With so many others competing for the same slice of opportunity, the odds were stacked against him. And let's be honest, that's not unusual. When a new defensive coordinator comes in and a new vision for the defense is implemented, players from the previous regime often find themselves in limbo. This linebacker may have done everything asked of him, but that doesn't guarantee anything when philosophies shift. Schemes change, personnel needs change, and the guys who were borderline fits last season might not be fits at all anymore. That's the cold reality of the NFL. Even if you're talented, even if you work hard, you need the right timing, the right situation, and the right staff to believe in what you bring to the field. Without that alignment, it becomes incredibly hard to stick. What we're seeing now is not just a typical round of cuts. It's a recalibration. The Cowboys are moving on from players who were products of a different plan, a different direction. You can feel it in how deliberate these moves are. There's no panic here. It's all about purpose. They're looking to give younger, more versatile players a shot. They want guys who can do more than just fill a position. They want speed. They want flexibility, and they want hunger. The kind of hunger that shows up every snap, whether on defense or on special teams. And with a new staff evaluating every detail, these first few cuts are likely just the beginning. The Cowboys still have time before the full roster needs to be finalized. But it's clear they're not waiting until the last minute to make hard decisions. Every cut is a signal, not just to the rest of the league, but to the players still on the roster. It says, no spot is guaranteed. It says, earn your place. And that message hits especially hard for guys who might have felt like they were safe. Veterans with some history in the league or holdovers from last year's practice squad. The safety net is gone. Every day of camp, every preseason rep, it all counts now more than ever. As fans, it can be tough to see familiar names leave, especially when those players gave everything they had to make the team. But this is part of the cycle. This is how the NFL works. And the Cowboys are playing it aggressively this year. The next few weeks will bring even more changes, and some of them may be even more surprising than the ones we've already seen. If the early cuts are any indication, this front office isn't afraid to shake things up and keep pushing for a more competitive, more efficient roster. One thing's for sure, if you're a fringe player in Dallas right now, you better be locked in because every single moment matters. But before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Dallas Cowboys. Feel free to share your thoughts on the news in the comments as well. In a stunning turn of events, Saquon Barkley has agreed to terms with the Dallas Cowboys, marking a significant shift in the running back's career. After months of speculation and rumors, the deal is now finalized, sending shockwaves through the NFL community. The move is one that has surprised many, considering Barkley's previous success with the New York Giants, where he earned multiple Pro Bowl selections and became the face of the franchise for several seasons. Barkley's decision to leave the Giants was not made lightly, but reports indicate that the opportunity to join a Super Bowl contender in the Cowboys was simply too appealing. With a roster that includes one of the league's top quarterbacks, Dak Prescott, and an offense that boasts a wealth of playmakers, the Cowboys are positioning themselves for a championship run in the upcoming season. Barkley's skill set, which includes explosive speed, elusiveness, and an ability to catch passes out of the backfield, will add a new dimension to an already dynamic offense. For the Cowboys, Barkley's arrival adds an extra layer of stability to their running game. While they've relied on a committee approach in recent years, the addition of a game-changing back like Barkley is expected to elevate their offensive attack to new heights. The former Penn State star's ability to break tackles and pick up yards after contact will be a major asset in the Cowboys' quest for another deep playoff run. On the other hand, the Giants will now face the challenge of replacing their star running back, who was instrumental in their success over the past few seasons. While they will likely look to the draft or free agency to bolster their backfield, Barkley's departure is undoubtedly a blow to the team's offense. For Giants fans, it marks the end of an era, as Barkley was one of the last remaining pieces from the team's 2018 draft class that brought hope to a struggling franchise. The Cowboys' bold move to sign Barkley has sparked excitement within the fan base, with many seeing this as the missing piece to their puzzle. If Barkley can stay healthy and produce at the level he's capable of, he could be the player that pushes Dallas over the top. With the season just around the corner, all eyes will be on the Cowboys as they attempt to build a roster that can finally end their Super Bowl drought. For Barkley, it's a new chapter in what has already been a remarkable career, and one that could lead to even greater heights if he finds success in Dallas. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Dallas Cowboys, please subscribe to our channel and give this video a like. We always look forward to your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.